Hello, I'm Steve Barg, City Administrator for the City of Marshfield. Welcome to the post-council meeting news conference. This is for the council meeting held on Tuesday, August 10th. Normally you'd see Mike Warren of WDLB and possibly others from the local media asking me questions. Today it's just me, so I'll be kind of giving you an update on what transpired at the August 10th council meeting and maybe giving you an idea of where some of those items might go in the future. First of all, as we always do, we had a couple of staff updates. In this case, I gave an update on the summer hours pilot program here at City Hall. For those who maybe haven't heard, City Hall has been authorized by the council to do a pilot program to run summer hours for the next 4 weeks, beginning August 9th and running through September 3rd. What this will be is we will be closing at noon on Friday each of those 4 weeks. So we'll be open from 7:30 to noon on Friday the 13th and the subsequent Fridays. We're doing something that's being done by a lot of other municipalities, cities and villages in Wisconsin. And it's sort of a way of representing the fact that people do get away during the summer. We have a lot lower volume of traffic on Friday afternoons. And this is an opportunity also for our city employees to get away a little bit during the summer season and enjoy what Wisconsin has to offer. Keep in mind that all the employees will be working a full 40-hour week, so they've had to adjust their schedules accordingly to make sure between Monday through Thursday and Friday morning that they get those 40 hours in. We'll be taking any information we get from the public, good, bad, or otherwise, and bringing it back to the council with a full report at the September 14th council meeting. At that time, the council will decide whether or not they wish to continue with this program into the summer of 2022, either the way we're doing it now or with some modification, or whether there's been some problems and concerns that would suggest that we not continue the program. So keep an eye out for that and give me a call if you have any questions. Also, Justin Casperson, our Parks and Recreation Director, introduced a new employee. Her name is Amanda Bruce. She's the new Recreation Manager. Some of you may know Kelly Cassidy, the longtime Recreation Manager for the City of Marshfield, who retired after a wonderful career. She left service back in July. Amanda comes to us from North Carolina, although she has been in Marshfield before, actually has some roots here, and worked for a short time for the Park and Recreation Department. We are so excited to have Amanda on board. It was great to have the council and the public meet her the other night, and I've had a chance to be in a meeting with her, and I think she's going to be a great addition to city staff. Getting into some more of the meat of the agenda, we have the consent agenda. I know we talk about this a lot. These are items that come from committees, and oftentimes they get approved with a single motion and no discussion. And you may wonder, you hear it's coming to the council, but you don't hear it discussed. That's why. If the council feels that the committee that reviewed it was on track and that their recommendation is sound, they won't pull it off the consent agenda and they can approve all the actions with one motion. But I want to call a couple into question with you right now. They relate to COVID-19, and I'll be talking more about COVID-19 a little later on here as we get farther down the agenda. But there's been a bit of a resurgence in cases. We're all disappointed to hear that. We're all kind of hoping that would fade out. But we're seeing the Delta variant come into play. Wood County Health Department has said that we are in a high transmission area. We're getting more activity. We need to protect ourselves. So certainly up front, I want to encourage vaccinations. I want to encourage people to take precautions for themselves, to protect themselves and their families. And hopefully we'll get through this next phase as quickly as possible. But a couple of things that were brought forward by Jennifer Rakew, our Human Resource Director, relate to city staff. One is, what if someone can't come to work because they're being quarantined because they came into contact with someone who has COVID-19? Well, that's an item that happens through no fault of somebody, and suddenly they can't come to work. And so what we want to do is temporarily extend sick leave as an opportunity for those individuals to cover their hours and make sure that they're getting a full paycheck. We have some rules that go along with that, and Ms. Rakew has sent out an email to people on some of the things to be looking for in COVID in general, but certainly how this policy will work, and this will run for a little while as we work through the pandemic. Another thing that came again from Jennifer and that was approved at the council meeting on August 10th was reinstating telework. We had a number of employees back in 2020 who worked remotely. These are people for whom it works well. Now, it doesn't work well for every employee. It depends what your job duties are, your expectations. Can you create an area in your own home that allows you to do your work? Do you have a good internet service? Do you have the tools and the ability to do your work from home? But we had a lot of people do this back in the spring of last year, and I think maybe in the late fall and winter when we had that first resurgence of COVID. And then, of course, it lapsed. We didn't renew it. And now we want to reinstate it through the end of calendar year 2021 to make sure that we make that a possibility for people who can do it. The fewer people that we have who might be possibly, infected or believe they've been exposed, the better for all of us. So as part of our health and safety effort, we want to make sure that that's an opportunity for the people who are eligible. We then got into the regular part of the council meeting, and the first thing we had was a presentation on emerald ash borer. Now, if you're like me, you probably don't know a lot about EAB, and I should know more than I do because I work here at City Hall, and I've heard that message for quite a while. It's taking a toll on ash trees across Wisconsin and even into our area. Well, our city forester brought up the fact that in Brain Park, and I assume most of you know where that is, but that's just the area east of McDonald's. There has been some concern about the number and the denseness, if you will, of the ash trees. And so he discussed possible alternatives to try and address that. And there's not just one option. He came forward with various ideas, but the main thrust of it is if we don't do anything, in 5, 7, 10 years, we're going to start seeing a pretty bad scenario out there where the trees are going to be, slowly dying, and it's something we want to get out in front of. So I would encourage you, if you are interested in this topic, to take a look at our website, look back at the video and our Facebook page, and really take a look at what was said by the city forester. Mark did a wonderful job of outlining the concern and the potential problems that we face as we try to deal with it. We had several second readings of ordinances on the docket, and sometimes these don't seem real exciting, especially since oftentimes if an ordinance is brought forward by staff for review, a lot of the questions might come out in the first reading. But we do 2 readings because we want the public and the council to have a chance to really digest these potentially important changes to our city code. One of them was from Jen Rakey again, and that was related to the ethics board. For those who don't know, we created an ethics board back in late 2020, and the idea of this group would look at any concerns that come up with elected or appointed officials. When I say appointed, I don't mean city staff, I mean committee and board members, in terms of something that they might do that could perhaps be a conflict of interest. Just an example might be if you were voting on something that maybe a member of your family stood to benefit financially from, that could be a conflict of interest. And this board has met a number of times. They're not just looking at those types of incidents where maybe someone did something wrong and we needed to look at it or could have done something wrong, but situations where a person says, you know what, I want to know ahead of time. I know that come November, there's going to be a vote coming to my committee or to the council about this topic. And I think I might have an issue where I have to step aside. And they want to find out in advance, ahead of things, proactively, whether there would be an ethical conflict that they need to be aware of. So they can bring it to the board, and the board will actually give them feedback on whether or not they see a problem with participating in that particular discussion and vote. That's a really good thing, and we've seen a couple instances of that already, trying to head things off. Anyway, the ordinance on Tuesday night was, really just cleaning up some things, and nothing really huge, but at least it was designed to make the ordinance read the way we want it to. These were things that were found in the first few months that really should be corrected, and that was passed by the council. There was also approval of an ordinance that gave the chief of police the authority to grant variances from the city code related to open containers. Now, historically, the city of Marshfield, like most communities, have said for events, let's say it's Hub City Days or it's you name your favorite event, that if there's going to be any outside open containing drinking, if you will, it's got to be in a roped off or sealed off area and not outside of that. You can't just go walking down the sidewalk or down the street with open containers of alcoholic beverages. But we've had some activities lately, including a downtown wine walk and several others that have been fairly limited in scope. They're daytime events. There doesn't seem to be a great risk of public intoxication or other problems. And the acting police chief, Pat Zepps, has brought them to the council to see if they'd be willing to waive it for that event. And the council has historically said yes. It's not been unanimous. There's been some thought about whether this is a good thing or not to allow that. But it's been a pretty solid response, a positive by the council. So what acting chief Zepps did was put together an ordinance that said, can you give me the authority to approve these administratively? And if for some reason I don't find that they meet the criteria and that it's not something they've demonstrated will be safe and appropriate, I can turn it down and it can be brought to the council to see if the council would be willing to consider overriding it. that'll probably take off the docket a lot of these that we see on these agendas that are fairly routine approvals for the council. There was a lot of discussion on that, both at the first reading and the second reading, but ultimately the council voted in favor of it. I believe it was 8-2, if I'm right. Anyway, there was enough support to get that one through, and that will now be effective. So from now on, those will go to the police chief rather than directly to the council. A couple other things worth discussing from the council meeting the other night. There was, getting back to COVID for a minute, I brought forward a resolution for the council to consider to give me emergency authority to deal with the operation of our city buildings and facilities that might be necessary during COVID-19. Now, I've done that twice before, back in March of 2020 when COVID first broke, and then again, I believe it was in November when we had that first resurgence in the fall. And I'm not suggesting that I'm suddenly going to come to work the next day and say, oh, we're going to close City Hall to the public and we're going to do all these things, but COVID is a very fluent thing, I think most of us realize. Back in June and early July, a lot of us thought it might be over. And all of a sudden here we have the Delta variant and we have a great uptick in cases that we're dealing right now. And there's concern about where this is going to head. So it's something that might be very different on Friday than it was on Monday. And council only meets every 2 weeks. In fact, in late August into early September, they meet 3 weeks apart because of the 5 Tuesdays. So they'll actually meet on August 24th, and then again, not until September 14th. Well, that's a long time in pandemic world. So what I was asking them for was the authority to be given to me to take action for all the city buildings and facilities that the city proper oversees. Now, the police and the fire and the library, they report to their own boards and commissions. We don't dictate how they do that. So they make their own decisions on whether to require masks for the employees or whether to restrict access to the public to those buildings. But the ones that we control, City Hall and several other city buildings and facilities, I want to be able to take action if necessary. I'm not proposing anything at this time. In fact, as I tape this right now, there's nothing immediately in the works to take any actions, but I'm glad that the council gave me that authority. There was a lot of discussion, and it was not a unanimous vote, I don't believe. But one of the issues that was brought up was vaccinations. Would one of the actions I'd be taking, on my own be to require that city employees be vaccinated? I made it very clear to them that that was not my intent, that that's not even on my radar. They went further, which I understand and appreciate, that they had added to the resolution that that's not part of the authorization they're giving me. And that's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure that I have the authority to deal with some of the things that we went through back in 2020, and I appreciate them giving me that authorization. The next thing was a redistricting committee appointment. You may recall, if you follow us, that a couple weeks ago, I brought forward a proposal for a redistricting committee, and the council modified the composition a little bit. What a redistricting committee does is they take the raw data that they're going to get very soon from the county, and they boil it down and they look at the population and where people live. So right now we have 10 council districts, and they're spread out in a way that every person who is on the council, every district, represents roughly the same number of people. Not exactly, that would be pretty difficult to achieve, but you don't have a situation where District 10 has 2,500 people and District 9 has 1,000 people. That would be wrong. We actually, by law, have to come within 10% from the highest populated district to the lowest. It has to be within 10%. So if one was 2,000, for example, the lowest one, can't be that much farther below that. I'm not doing the math here as I speak, not that I couldn't do it, but they've got to be pretty tightly together. And so you say, well, what's the big deal? What did 10 years from 2010 to 2020 change that? Well, we've had some development in the last 10 years. In fact, some of it has been some apartment development in the city. And where those have been built, you might suddenly have buildings that have lots of people living in them, and that can throw off the population of those districts. So we need to rework the lines somehow so that every district has roughly the same number of people. So I can guarantee these lines are likely to be moved in some way by this committee. And the committee only has about 3 months to do their work. So the council did make the appointments. Back on the 27th of July, the council said they wanted to make the committee 3 council members and 2 citizens. So we got 6 council members interested for 3 spots and 5 members of the general public who put their name in the hat for the 2 citizen appointments. And the council took a vote last night. As we taped this, it was last night. And they voted for Ed Wagner, Adam Fisher, and Rebecca Spiros to be the council representatives to this committee. And for two individuals, Georgette Frazier and Ann Stebning Rowe, to be the citizen members. Now, this group will meet sometime soon, hopefully before the end of August, as soon as hopefully we get the information from the county. We're expecting that anytime now. And Deb Hall, the city clerk, who does a marvelous job with all things related to elections and this type of thing, will be a part of the process. I'll be involved to a degree. David Bueller, our excellent GIS coordinator, will be part of it as well in terms of the mapping that needs to be done to help these folks. We won't be voting members. We had once proposed that we be voting members because that happened back in 2010, but we will be advisors to this committee, helping them to do their work. But within 3 months, the expectation is that they'll bring something to the council as far as what the redrawn lines should look like, and then that will be forwarded up to Wood County and beyond. So it's a very important committee. I want to thank all those people who said they were interested, who called, even if they didn't ultimately send me an email, just for your interest in the community. And if you weren't chosen, as I've written to these people, please watch for other opportunities. We have committees and boards and commissions that we're looking for help all the time. You are the people that do so much of the work here at City Hall. And that is a segue for myself. Do you like how that worked? Like I'm interviewing myself at this point. The last item on the council agenda was to appoint Melissa Schmidt to a vacant position on the Plan Commission. Steve Okonek recently stepped aside from that commission. He has done a great job for the city. He's been on, I think, 3 different committees or commissions. His schedule is making it a little bit different or difficult for him to attend all the Plan Commission members. So he did resign, and we're happy to bring Melissa on board. Her first meeting with the Plan Commission will be on August 17th. And that's an important group that we have here. They deal with a lot of the zoning and land use and planning type issues. And they have some statutory powers that they have for the things that come before them. They also make referrals to the council on various changes in codes and ordinances. So good to have Melissa on board. I want to kind of wrap that one up by saying, again, that if you are interested in city government here in Marshfield, we want to hear from you. There's so many ways to weigh in. We're about to go into the budget process, and we need your input. And the earlier, the better. I know we hold a public hearing in late November, and if you want to send us a letter or an email for that meeting, that's fine. But really, the sooner we get your input, the better. Right now, we're going to be starting to make some tough decisions. Right now, it's at the staff level where the department heads have given me their budgets. I'm going through them. We're obviously going to have to do some trimming and try to bring together a proposal we can bring to the council in October. The council will then have 3 meetings. Last year, they had 4 to make these tough decisions about what stays in and what drops out of the budget, what the tax rate looks like, and those kind of things. If you are watching me right now and you have an idea, a cost-saving idea, maybe something in your neighborhood you want to see get done that's not happening, a street that needs to be fixed, or park equipment that needs to be upgraded, whatever. Or if you're just concerned about the way we tax and spend, and you want to weigh in with your views, please contact me, contact the council president or a member of the council. You can go onto our website and find ways to tap into us. I'll give you my email address and phone number in just a minute as we wrap up, but I can't tell you how much we need your input. I've said this with my interviews with Tom Laux, our communications director, who does a wonderful job of promoting the opportunities we have for people to plug in with the city. We want to have you involved in any way that you have time for and interest in, whether that to be just a one-time comment or to be on a regular standing committee or board. So please keep that in mind. Well, this is a different kind of program, this time without anybody asking me questions besides myself, which was kind of interesting at a couple of points. But I thank you for watching. I thank you for your interest in the city of Marshfield. Again, this is Steve Barg, City Administrator, and this is the post-council meeting news conference from the meeting of August 10th. Thank you, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.